Okay.
And she'll talk to you about reporting. Thanks, Grace.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Grace. As Kent mentioned, I'm a safety professional. So I've been in safety for over 15 years. And I understand the challenges of safety professionals because we have a lot going on all the time. So observations is not the only thing going on. But one of the questions is, how do I determine what are my biggest challenges in the field or at the different plants or different locations within your facilities, so I know where to focus my resources and allocate also my efforts to making sure that we prevent incidents from happening before they occur. Now, most of you that are on the webinar right now probably have many observers out there conducting observations, but how many of you are actually looking at the data? So if we don't look at the data, it's really hard to determine where we are versus where we want to be. Also hard to determine where we need to focus our resources and allocate our efforts out to our different areas or our workforces. So when I talk about analyzing data as a safety professional, that seems to be not something that really piques my interest. When you say analyze data, well, I'm not a data analyst. We do have a data analyst on staff, Nick Bernini, and when he says analyze data, it puts a smile on his face, and he actually gets happy about that experience. For me, analyzing data, to me, it's like, well, I want something that's going to be easy and point me in the right direction. So fortunately for you, SafetyNet has a great reporting system that does just that. It makes it easy to pinpoint who you need to have conversations with and where your risks are being taken. So hopefully at the end of this session, you'll be just as pumped as I am when it comes to analyzing all the data. So we're going to hopefully go through everything and make you feel excited at the end. For basic reports, the goal of the basic reports is really to track participation. We're going to identify quality of observations, identify coaching and mentoring opportunities, and identify leading indicators by location, by project, contractor, observed party, department, and really to communicate safety data. It's a lot of information that we're going to go over today, so I hope many of you have had your plenty cups of coffee, and I am going to be speaking a little fast, and that's only because I want to get all the information in the time that we have allocated for this session. So as Kent mentioned, we're going to take questions at the end, and hopefully we can answer all of your questions. If we do not get to answer all your questions, please provide your contact information for Kent so we can get a team member to reach out to you. So let's get started. So today's agenda, we're going to go over our detailed report, our inspector and observer summary report, contractor project summary report, or location report. Our summary report that's going to tell us our top issues at a particular location or within a contractor or observed party. We're going to go over schedule reports if you want to communicate information on a repetitive basis instead of manually sending it out every week. We can schedule those. Open issues report, and then we can, if we have time, we'll go over some trending reports. So the first report is the detailed report, and you will find this on the Reports tab under the Reports section. Now, some companies or some clients this may look a little different, and these labels may look a little different as well. Some people call reports analysis. This is simply a label, so please bear with me as we go through the slides. Projects may be crews, contacts may be people, so all of these are labeled as we go through them. So let's get started with the detailed report. The detailed report is exactly that, a detailed report. Let's look at the details. So let's look at the criteria first, and if you can see here, it's very specific. We're able to run a detailed report by a specific checklist, and when we select the checklist, we can actually tell the system what categories we want to run. So if you want to run categories that are like your focus 4, or maybe if you want to say, I want to run a report, everything that has to do with lockout, tagout, or everything that has to do with fall protection, you can definitely do that once you select a specific type of checklist. You can also run reports by severity levels. low, we have the 4 severity levels, and every time you enter an at-risk condition, low, medium, high, or like threat. We also have the ability to show only the at-risk, or we can show both. We can show images. You can run it by root cause or antecedents if you are using this field. And then you can also tell it how it's going to show the chart. Again, the detailed report has a lot of extensive criteria. It can slice and dice. So if you want to run something specific and you're not really sure, please get with your process improvement leader to help you. Now, the detailed report is a live report. So the minute someone synchronizes their mobile device or enters observations on the website, you are going to be able to run that report. On the advanced tab of the search criteria, I put this up here because we do have, when it comes to location information, there are some fields available to you. You can repurpose these, but I have some clients that are running reports by owner. That way, when they bid a project or if they're going to do a presentation to get a contract, they can show that specific owner the type of observations, this process that they have. So these are fields that are available to you if you're not currently using them. So I ran a sample detailed report here, and this is for a particular project, and it's going to give us the details, who exactly was being observed, who were the observers in this particular occasion for this time frame. And it's going to give us the category, subcategory. It's also going to tell us if things have been completed or not. And I actually was a customer of Predictive Solutions, and when I ran my program, we had some serious incidents occur on our locations, and we found ourselves in litigation, as we are in a litigious society, and we actually used our detailed report to show that we were doing our due diligence in managing safety on our location. These are things that litigation is going to look at is, are things being completed? So it's one thing to find something wrong and document it, but a completely different thing to make sure that it's being addressed and it's documented that it's addressed. So as you can see here above here, we have an open issue right now, and we want to make sure that as we go through our detailed reports, we pay attention to these so we can make sure we get with this particular observer to close these out. Now, when we talk about our detailed report, one of the ways you can use your detailed report is to facilitate conversation. So in my career, I would use my detailed report to have conversations with my third party, whether it be a subcontractor or a vendor that was performing work, or maybe even a third party department that was doing work in the area. To sit down and have a conversation with them if I found that they were taking a lot of risks or if they had a lot of deficiencies. Sometimes in those conversations, the third party tends to make a lot of excuses, or they kind of downplay, well, no, that only happened one time, or it doesn't happen all the time, or that wasn't me. So when I come to the table with this detailed report, it really kind of sets the tone for the meeting to say, look, this is your history. This is where you are. Let's work together to make sure that you kind of get up to par as far as working here at my location and how you're going to do safety. So this is a great opportunity to bring details to the table when you're having a conversation. Again, you can run this by observed party. You can run this by project if you want to have a meeting with the project team. Maybe you have to have a meeting with your internal team to say, how are we managing this particular location? So this is a great report to bring to the table, so that way we kind of get into the nitty-gritty to really make a difference in changing the way people are behaving. Another opportunity for using the detailed report is to calibrate your severity levels. So all of your observers are at their discretion putting in a severity level anytime they enter in an at-risk condition. So anytime they press the red button on their mobile device, severity level is a requirement. Now, it is at the observer's discretion because only the observer knows what's going on at that time. But this is a specific example of how if we ran a detailed report and we run it by all of the lows, because unfortunately people like to use low, we can actually sort through our lows and see if, in fact, our observers are putting in the correct severity levels. This specific example is a crew that is working out on the street. They're doing some road work. It looks like a car, a vehicle, entered the work area, and the observer put that in as a low. From my personal experience working with crews that work out on the road, if we have a vehicle going into a work zone, that's really one of your #1 causes of fatalities in a work zone. So I definitely would not rate that a low. In fact, you see the bottom there, it looks like they shut it down with only cones instead of installing a road closed sign. So had there been an incident in this area, did the contractor do their due diligence? In this case, the answer is probably no, because there wasn't adequate signage. So would we rate these as a low? So this is an opportunity to go back to your observers to recalibrate your severity levels and say, okay, at this, with the type of business that we are doing here, the type of work we're doing, for us, lockout, tagout will always be a high and life threat. Or for us, issues in a work zone is always going to be a high or a life threat. And you guys determine that based on the work you guys are doing. But you'll find, and we find as Predictive Solutions, many people like to put lows because they don't like to draw attention to their location. So it's unfortunate because if we have highs and life threats, it's absolutely an alert to those looking at their reports. Next reports I'm going to go over are the Contractor Summary, or again, these are just labels. This could be Observed Party Summary, Project Summary Report. This could be Location Summary Report, and Observer Summary Report. This could be Inspector Summary Report. All of these reports are not live, so it's very important to remember that these reports are dependent on an overnight data warehouse refresh. So if someone does an observation today and I run my observer summary report today, that observer's observations will not show up until tomorrow. So it's important to note that. Now, the Inspector Observer Summary Report is exactly that. We're actually looking at how the observer, what they're doing. The criteria is very specific. We can do it by, group it by projects, show it for current projects only. We can show auditors with no inspections. This is going to give you a lot of zeros on your report, especially if you have many people listed as an inspector and they are not necessarily doing observations. You can run this by inspection type, and then you have quite an extensive criteria here how you can slice and dice your data. The leading indicators of the Observer Summary Report is really looking at your frequency of inspections and looking at your number of observations versus your number of unsafe or your number of at-risk behaviors or conditions. As we believe in here at Predictive Solutions, the more observations that are being conducted out at your locations, the safer your location should be, because we have many opportunities as we're walking through our locations to redirect unsafe behaviors and correct unsafe conditions, therefore creating a safer environment. So here's an example of an observer summary report, and here I have the columns: contact region, inspector, position. So these are all the columns if I run a generic report. I'm going to show you a little bit of our what we call grid functionality. If I right-click on any of the black, it's going to give me a menu, and it's going to give me an opportunity to actually work with my columns. So if I click on columns, it'll give me an opportunity to pull them out and pull columns in. So depending on the information you need, you can tailor your grid or your columns to show the information that you want to show to your upper management, or maybe to your own safety team, or even to the observers. You would then click apply, and now the columns are the way I had selected it. Another icon I want to share with you up here is our tools. So these are our grid tools, and this is our paint palette tool. And if you can see, I have fields highlighted in red and in orange and with little icons, and that's because of the rules that I set. So when you click on the palette icon, you can set rules. So I have average days between inspections greater than 3, highlighted orange. At-risk totals equals 0, highlighted red, because then we're having, when it equals 0, that means we have 100% safe locations, 100% safe inspections, observations, and as many of you know, when we have too many 100% safes, it's not going to give us the leading indicators that we need in identifying where the risks are being taken. So as I set those rules, you can see here, we are able to highlight very clearly those that have zeros and those that have more than 3 days between inspections. Here, if I have 13 observations for, in this particular client, observations equals inspections. So this person has 13 inspections in this time frame with 221 individual observations, but 0 at-risk items or 0 unsafe items. Is that a true indication of the locations that John is working at? And these are questions that you need to ask yourself when you're reading these reports. I'm going to do a little bit more work on this grid just to show you our grid functionality. If I go back and I right-click, I'm going to click Group by Contact Region. So now I get to see if you do have different business units, regions, or locations, or maybe facilities. Just depends. Remember, again, region is just the label. You can actually group it so you could see how each region is doing. And then using our aggregate tool up here in our grid tools, you're able to put the total here at the bottom of each region. So you're able to see totals by region. I went one step further and I ran charts. So if I click here on my chart function, I ran 3 charts. I have total observations by region, in this case, inspections by region, total items by region, which is total observations by region, and then total unsafe by region. So you are able to chart by business unit or facility or even region if you need to give maybe your executive level some totals at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter. So you are able to run those, okay? We see here for region 570, we have a total of 30 observations. It's right here. Total of items, 808 individual observations, and then we have 6 at risk. Well, looking at this, is that a good indication of the risk of the work that is being done in this particular business unit? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. Maybe yes, maybe no. Another opportunity here on our grid is you can export. So if we click that blue button, you're going to have the opportunity to email it, that report, to print the report. You can export the grid into Excel if you have to import it into some other software that you're currently using. And you can also export it to PDF, and you can tell it what portions of the report you're going to export. Now, I ran this chart specifically on the observers for one region. So what I did was I used my filter button, and I wanted to only look at 511. So if I look at only 511, I'm able to see the listing of names of my observers. And I ran a few charts here. So I see all of my observers here. These are the total observations, individual items within inspection. I see total at risk. So these are how many times are they pressing that red button when they're out there in the field on their mobile device. And this is the average day between observations as they're doing work. So these numbers kind of don't really look that impressive, but maybe they are based on the type of work they're doing. So this is 1 month's worth of data. But the thing that strikes me very much is going to be these zeros. So if we see here that even though they're entering observations, I have more than 50% of my observers that are not recording the risks that are being taken out on the projects or out on the facility. So what does this mean? Well, I can tell you right now, a lot of your observers are doing an excellent job of walking their work areas and redirecting behaviors and correcting unsafe conditions. If they weren't doing a great job, you would have accidents almost every day, and I hope many of you are not having accidents every day. what we are asking as Predictive Solutions, and I'm sure you are asking your observers, is to record those risky behaviors and those risky conditions. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, and then we find a lot of zeros as we see here. These zeros are pretty much going to tell you on a report that you're perfect, and unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. And so we're missing an opportunity to see our leading indicators. So we want to identify those at-risk behaviors and conditions prior to an incident. So let's see where risks are being taken so we can have some conversations before something happens. So these zeros right here on this chart is a great indicator for you as a safety professional to see, you know, if in fact where these people are working, if this is a good indication of the area they're working in. If I look over here, total days between observations, I have some pretty high numbers here for 30 days. So this person hasn't done an observation in almost 13 days. This person hasn't done one in almost 9 days. Is that okay? Well, it just depends on where they're working and if there's more than one team member. So again, the more observations we do in our work areas, the greater the opportunity we have to redirect unsafe behaviors and correct unsafe conditions, therefore preventing incidents. So these high numbers here are an indication that even though they're meeting their monthly requirement, they're really not reporting the walkthroughs that they're doing all the time. Now, again, like I said, most people focus over here on, okay, what is our number of inspections? What are our number of observations? But I really wanted, we want to evolve our safety process to start looking at, are they recording the at-risk, and are they looking at average days between observations by observer? Now, many of you may wonder, and you have seen this inspector percentile, and a lot of people get a little bit confused as to how this works, and hopefully I'll be able to give some clarification today. These stars are really, it's a forced rank system. So we have Melanie here with 4 stars. So she's at the 20 percentile that is at 4 stars. So it's a forced rank system. 20% of your observers will be 5-star observers. 20% of your observers will be 4-star observers. The other 20% will be 3-star observers, and so on and so on. So you will never have all of your observer base be 5-star because that's not how the system is set up. However, if you click on the stars, the information within it is, to me, extremely valuable, especially if you're looking at your observation process and how your observers are performing. So I specifically selected Melanie because she had the most stars. And as you can see here, these are the 4 components that are within your star system. It's participation, number of observations per week, safes per observation, number of safe items per inspection, at-risk per observation, which is number of at-risk items per inspection, and then severity. So severity is going to depend on how you have your severity weighted within your zone. Okay, so you can weight your low, medium, highs, and life threats differently to lower your percent safe in an inspection. So let's look at the data here. So for number of observations per week, we're able to see on average for this particular client, on average their observers do a little more than 1 observation or inspection per week. The best for this customer, they do almost 7 inspections per week, and the worst does less than 1. So to me, this is very valuable information. So you're able to see your average performance within your observers, and you'll know what you need to focus on when we're giving feedback to our observers as a whole. Safe per inspections, it looks like the worst is only doing less than 2 safes per inspection. On average, we have about 18 safes per inspection, and the best is 82. So Melanie is actually doing 30 safes per inspection. That's why she's got the higher percentile on that. At risk per observation. So as we see here as a whole within this client, we only have less than 1 at risk per inspection. The best person has 2, a little more than 2. And as you can see here, Melanie is well over 1, so that is why she's at a 5 stars in that. To me, looking at this, this right here is an indication that people are not recording the risk, therefore missing opportunities to give you leading indicator information. Our severity levels, again, how we have our severity levels rated is really going to give us this number here. So are they using the high, low, medium, light threat? As you can see here, Melanie is also a 5 star because if I look at her observations, I'm able to see that she's using mediums, highs, and light threats in her observation. Okay, so again, if we look at the 5 stars, this is all 4th rank, but really the information within those stars is what's going to give you valuable information on what feedback do I need to give my observers, okay? All right, now we're going to jump to contractor and project summary report, or in this case, observer or location summary report. Again, these are all labels. And it is quite an extensive criteria. Both of them have the same criteria. You can run it by checklist, by category, run it by observed party, by inspector, by root cause, by location, project, by business unit, region. You can tell it only current projects only or only current departments only. Again, we have our advanced tab that allows us to run reports by these specific fields. Reminder, we can always repurpose these if you're wanting to run reports by something specific. Now, this is an example of a observed party report, or in construction, contractor summary report. If you're in manufacturing, it could be a production line summary report. And it's going to list here all of your observed parties, number of inspections for that observed party, number of observations, number of unsafes, and then we have severity count. So I actually manipulated my grid to show me this information. I use my grid tool to make sure to make some charts. So I have here total observations. We have some pretty high numbers here, very impressive for this 1 month of inspections. But if I look over here, my number of unsafes is not as impressive as this is. So we need to make sure that you know, this number of unsafes or at-risk observations is really an indication of what's going on that particular location or that project. The one thing that does stand out to me, though, is this 22 right here. So if I look at this 22 for this particular contractor, you know, it looks like the observers that are really hitting this contractor pretty hard, or this observer pretty hard. So if I want to look specifically at what are the observations for that, I can go ahead and click on the summary. If you notice, every observed party has a summary. When I click on that summary, it's going to give me exactly that, a summary. So I have 47 inspections for this observed party, 820 observations within all those inspections, 22 unsafes, and then it's going to break down my severity levels. If I look over here to my right on my grid down here, I'm able to see the highs, and if I kind of scroll over to my right, I'm able to see one of my highs is in fall protection. And those of you working in construction, you know that fall protection remains one of the leading causes of fatalities. So if you want to look at those details, you simply click on that fall protection, and just an FYI, any of these that are green can be clicked on. If we click on that, when we click on View Details, we're able to see that specific details for that observation. So if we read here, it's at this particular project, this particular observed party, on this date, this is the observer, and the comments are that the worker was wearing a harness a size too large for him. So the D-ring was too low, and the back and front straps was crossed to fit the snug. So it looks like they handed somebody a harness thinking that that was going to be sufficient, and that person, of course, using the resources that are made available to them, turned around and they ended up tying the straps to each other just so it would fit right, because now we created an unsafe environment for this worker by having a large harness. Now, he probably can't work comfortably because he's got these straps all over, flapping all over the place. So, again, this is a great opportunity to put it in as a high. So now when you're running that report, you're able to see the specifics. Okay, so this is where comments and images, if you had one, are very important when doing observations, because I don't have to pick up the phone and call AJ. I'm able to read right here because he provided comments on what specifically occurred with this particular contractor, with this particular category. So the leading indicators on an observed party summary is really going to look at what the number of observations versus the number of unsafe. So are the observers recording the risks that are being taken? And it's also going to provide you the information you need to have to make sure you have conversation. So with this particular contractor, I would take this report, I would have a meeting with their management and say, well, it looks like you have harnesses out here, but I'd like to know, what is your method of distributing those harnesses, and are you providing training to the employee? Because if the employee felt that it was okay to cross them and maybe tie a knot on them, then that tells me the employee has not had adequate training. So this is the report you would run to have a conversation. Next example is going to be an example of our project or location summary report, and this is where you're going to find your red flags. So when you run a project or location summary report, we do have a column that is specific to the red flags, and that's our prediction model. And so this is where you're going to find it. So if anyone says, well, I want to know if I have red flags in my location, it's going to be under your your project or location summary report. So I run a sample location summary report here for a particular business unit. I have all my projects listed here, my number of audits by project, number of observations within those audits, and my at-risk conditions, and then my severity count. I ran a few reports here, charts total audits by location, total observations by location, and total number of at-risk by location. Again, if I look at the All-State Center, I have 2 audits, 61 observations, 0 at risk. The question to ask yourself managing the safety process is that a true indication of what's going on at the All-State project? It may or may not be. So these are questions you need to ask yourself. If we look at health education campus, we have a very high number of observations and only 13 unsafe going in the system. Is that a true indication of what's going on at the project? It could be maybe you've had a few incidents with subcontractors at this project and you expect to see a higher number. So the charts are just going to give you some quick at-a-glance things to make you ask yourself those questions. Similar to contractor summary, every single project has an analysis. So if I want to look, I have it highlighted here. Most companies focus right here is, are people meeting their expectations? So is each project doing their 5 inspections a week? Or are they doing their 4 inspections a month? And so this is where people get gift cards, and we do incentive programs all around, are you doing your inspections or audits? What we ask our customers is to take a deeper look. If we're really going to make a difference in saving people's lives, we really need to look at what our people are looking at and what they're recording. So we ask our customers to start looking at number of observations within their number of audits. So if we have a high number here, we're hoping to have a high number here. If the number's low, then we can determine that it's maybe a very short observation, and it may not be giving us the value that we need. And then the end goal is to really look at, are we recording the risks people are taking? By recording the risks people are taking, we're able to identify our leading indicators. When our observers do not record the risks people are taking, unfortunately, we won't know until someone gets hurt, because the reality is they're going to do it unsafe many times, but it just takes one time to get hurt, and that's when you're going to find out about it. So we want to make sure these numbers go up so that we can identify those risks and have conversations before someone gets hurt. So if I look specifically at this particular project, I just want to show you, I created a highlight here. I set a rule, number of audits less than 4, number of risk 0, again, just to show you how you can highlight by project as well. So anytime you see these grid tools, you are able to create some rules. Just as a quick reminder for you to take a look at that. So if I look at this particular project that I had highlighted earlier, I'm going to want to go into that analysis and see what observations are being put in for this project. Now, the first thing you're going to see when you click on the summary are the summary report charts. Now, these are 2 charts that some people have a hard time explaining what they mean, and I'm hoping I can clarify that for you today. So the orange bar is the number of unsafe counts. So the number of times your observers press that red button in that particular category. So as you can see here in ladders and stairs for this particular time frame, we have 4 unsafe observations for ladders and stairs. But if we look at the green bar, now the green bar is going to tell us the percent of the time we took a risk versus the percent of the time we did it right. So if I look down at my green percentage, it looks like 5% of the time our workers are doing it in an at-risk behavior or condition. So 4 counts, but 5% of the time we're doing it risky. Okay, we're doing it incorrectly. Now let's look at housekeeping. Housekeeping, we only have 2 counts of unsafe behaviors or unsafe conditions, but we're still at 5% unsafe or 5% at risk when it comes to this particular category. And I'm going to show more examples of this on the next, when we go over our summary report. Now our chart over here is going to tell us the same. Even though our count was high when it came to number of unsafes that are in the system or number of at-risk observations, if we look down here, we were only at a 2% risk when it came to our observations. Now keep in mind that these numbers can be skewed because if your observers are putting in 500 hard hats, 500 safety vests, 500 safety glasses, of course your percentage is low because it's looking at your number of unsafes versus your number of safes in the system. This is why we try to steer clear from putting every rebar cap or putting every hard hat in the system because it will skew your numbers. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom of this report for this particular location, it's also going to give me my number of audits. It's going to tell me my number of observations, how many were at risk, and then also my severity breakdown here. If I see here, I have some mediums and highs for this particular line item, and it's the extension ladder. So when I click on that, I'm able to see the specifics. So I have 2 different observers. One did a medium, one did a high. This case, the ladder didn't extend. It wasn't extending above the 3 foot, and this one the same. So if we were to click on that, you're able to see the specifics for that particular observation. Again, this is for a particular location, and we're able to see for that subcategory who the observed party is, who the observer was, and the specifics. So no one's gotten hurt on the ladder yet, and this is where you're going to use this information to go out there and have conversations to make sure that people are using their ladder correctly, okay, or that they have the adequate size ladder, okay. So on our location or project summary, the leading indicators are looking at a number of observations versus number of unsafe. Are your observers reporting the risks that are being taken? Your summary report chart is going to identify where risks are being taken prior to an incident. So we're hoping that no one's gotten hurt yet. and it's going to provide who to have conversations with. So as we can see here, I know very well I need to speak with Forest Inc. I'm going to kind of have a talk with their, look right here, contacted their safety rep, and I can bring this report to the table so we can show specific examples to this observed party, and that way we can come up with solutions on how to ensure that the work is going to be done correctly. Now the next report is going to be our summary report. And again, it's on our reports tab all the way down towards the bottom. And our summary report is going to allow us to identify our top risk categories by observed party, by location, or even overall company, or even by business unit. So a lot of times when I was working in private industry, my executives would say, Grace, tell me what my top 10 issues are within my business unit, or tell me what the top 10 issues are within this project. And if you don't have an electronic way of doing it, it can be an administrative nightmare. So the summary report is easily going to provide that information for you. The search criteria is quite extensive, so you can slice and dice the information in a tremendous amount of ways. And so it just depends on the need and the questions that your executives are asking for. Now, one thing to be specific here when you're running your summary report is to run it by subcategory. And the reason that's important is because I don't want to know that I have fall protection issues. I'd like to determine within fall protection what are my issues. Or I don't want to know I have lockout tagout issues. I want to know within lockout tagout what are the things I need to hone in on if I'm going to do some retraining for my workforce. So let's make sure we select subcategory when we're running a summary report. So again, on a summary report, you're going to find these two charts. And this is just a specific example of a particular location during a 1-month time frame. And if we see here, these are green are going to tell us our high-risk categories. So I have, in administration, I have 18 unsafe, so it looks like we were checking our paperwork, and 18 times we found that things were missing, and we're at a 50% risk level when it comes to our paperwork. So 50% of our paperwork is deficient. Is that good? Well, if you're in litigation, it's definitely not good, right? Our fall protection here, it looks like we only have 2 observations that were unsafe. But if we look at all of our observations, we're at a 50% deficient when it comes to the category of fall protection. Is 50% a good percentage to be deficient in fall protection? I'm going to tell you, absolutely not. So, so your green bars are really your leading indicators on where risks are being taken. I have clients that will run this chart with only the green. They will do a dotted line here, an imaginary dotted line, and they'll say everything past this dotted line, they're going to be our topics for this month's safety meeting or this week's safety meeting, or this is going to be the retraining that we do, because it looks like people are taking risks here. Thankfully, we haven't had anybody get injured yet, but they seem to be the categories according to the observer. Now, one disclaimer, one note I want to say here, this is all dependent on the observer's information. So if we're putting in 100% safe every time we do an observation, you are not going to have charts like this, because your observers are in essence telling you that your facilities or your locations are perfect. So there will be no leading indicators. This is why entering deficiencies is so important. And this is also an example how entering safe is so important. So you're able to see your risks versus your safe behaviors. So it's important to do a good balance of both. So I hope that explained those charts. I have a lot of clients that over the years say, you know, that those charts left us scratching our heads and they were too confusing to explain to upper management. So I hope that was a good clarification for you. Now for this particular location here, I ran this report by location. So 7 inspections, 86 observations, 25 at-risk conditions. I have my severity breakdown. And here, I put my at-risk conditions in descending order. So I simply clicked on the wording, and you're going to see this little triangle here, and it's going to put my at-risk conditions in descending order. And if you see here, from safety glasses on up, these are my top issues at this particular location or for this particular business unit during this time frame. So when an executive comes up to you and says, can you tell me the top 10 issues on my in my business unit, you can run the report, give them some totals, and then you can also show them these are the top 10 issues at the location or within your business unit. Now, again, this is very reliant on the observer. Unfortunately, we see a lot of times PPE is the category or the subcategory, or safety glasses is sometimes the top issue at a location or within a business unit. And you ask yourself, is that really our biggest issue within our business unit? Are we having a problem getting people wearing safety glasses? Well, if you have a problem getting people to wear safety glasses, you may have a bigger problem, because if they can't wear simple things like safety glasses and hard hats, then getting them to anchor off or getting them to do the proper lockout tagout procedures is going to be an even bigger challenge for you. So sometimes we see PPE always at the top, but we'd like to see items here that are going to prevent people from having a fatality or a serious incident. So we want to see the high risks that people are taking. So if you can see here on our confined space, you can see here we have issues with our lanyards. So it's not just fall protection, it's specifically I need to make sure I retrain on harness and lanyards, or maybe I need to look at my equipment. So this is going to tell us the information we need to take action. Again, this is a summary report. All of these can be clicked on. So if I pick specifically safety meetings, I can click on that. It'll give me an opportunity to view the details, and it's going to show me specifically where my issues are when it comes to safety meetings. Now, if I click on projects, it's going to tell me all of the locations or projects that have these observations for this report. And it's also going to tell me what observed parties are within this report as well, okay? So it really drills down when you look at a summary report on where the observations are and the details of them. The next report is going to be our open issue report. So this is extremely important to know what's opened and making sure that they get closed out. Now, the best way to close an open issue is going to be via a mobile device, because it's very easy and very user-friendly. But when you're managing a process, it's important to run this report to make sure that your observers are closing those issues out. We don't necessarily want to have an incident and then have a report that shows you never close anything out. That's not going to be good for you during litigation. You can group your open issues by project, by contractor, or category. Again, location of third party. You can tell the system to show me only the open issues, only those that have been corrected. So you can actually run a history of a particular location or a particular business unit, or you can show both. So it's specific criteria there as well. And then you can tell the system to highlight in red anything that's past so many days. So you determine what is acceptable for you. So I ran a sample observer summary report off of our demo zone here. And as you can see, Kent, he's in trouble. He's got an open issue here, and he's 10 days past his due date. So we're going to definitely have a conversation with Kent. So looking at your due dates here, and then here we're looking at how many days passed. Again, this is our grid function, an open issues report. You can manipulate these columns to what's important to you. And over here to our right is our edit button. And this is when you click on edit, it'll open this specific observation, and it'll allow us to edit any of the information within that observation, and it'll also allow us to close out that open issue, okay? So observers can close out open issues on their mobile device or log in and close it out on their open issues report. Most people don't like to log in if they don't have to, so mobile device is the best way to go. But for those of you managing this process, this is definitely an opportunity to know who you need to have a conversation with, okay? Now, using our charts, we can chart by observer who has the most days. So it looks like, you know, Kent's not too bad when it comes to everybody else, but you're going to get to know who you need to have a conversation with when it comes to those that are past the due date, okay? It makes it very easy, a quick visual. The next report is scheduled reports. So we have clients that say, you know, well, I want to send this observer summary to every business unit leader so they know who's doing observations and who is not. And I don't necessarily want to have to send that manually every week. So you're going to go to Reports, Manage Schedule Report, and what you're going to do is click here, Schedule Another Report, and you're going to see this screen. And here you're going to be able to name your report. You get to tell the system how often you want it to run, when the next event will be, and target contacts. So whoever's going to be receiving the report has to be a contact in the system. Now again, there is a difference between a contact and a user. A user has the opportunity to log in. A contact is just someone who's going to receive information. Okay, so there's a big difference between those two. You also get the opportunity to put in a note. So when my contact receives this email with a report, I put a note for this person so they know exactly what information is on this report. Now, once you click Save, it'll take you to report criteria, and then it's going to give you the opportunity to pick the type of report that you want to schedule out. So in this case, we're going to click Observer Summary Report, and if you notice, the criteria is exactly the same as if we were to run it manually. So it's the exact same criteria. Now, this is a listing. You can have multiple scheduled reports going out. They can be scheduled by anyone who is an administrator of the system or a manager level. And it's going to tell us what type of report date. Now, if I want to run a report, let's say I run a report every 1st of the month, and it happens to be the 31st of the month, and I say, well, I want to see what the results are before the report goes out tomorrow. You can click Run Now, and it'll send out that report to all those contacts just to give you a quick glimpse. So if you want to run it at the middle of the month, you can click Run Now, and it'll go. And then it'll run automatically at the 1st of the month or whatever date you have it scheduled. I used to have executives say, I want it sent every month, but then sometimes they would say, Grace, can you give me my results right now? It's the 15th of the month. I just kind of want to see where my guys stand. And so all I had to do was click Run Now and provide that information for that time frame. Now, when the recipient gets the report, it's just going to be a simple email. And again, these are the notes that we provided, the little notes that we provided. And when the recipient clicks on it, they're going to go ahead and see the information. And this is going to be the criteria, the report criteria, and then they're going to be able to see the information, okay? So in summary, our basic reports are going to give us opportunities to identify leading indicators by observed party, by project, and even specifically by subcategory. It's going to give us opportunities to identify coaching opportunities. So our observers, many of us are not born to be a perfect observer, and they're going to need coaching, they're going to need mentoring, and you're going to know who to coach and mentor just by looking at the data. It's going to provide you details to facilitate conversation. So in my opinion, if we don't have conversations with people that are out there taking risks, behaviors are never going to change. We're going to have to go out there, we're going to have to educate, we're going to have conversations about why it's unsafe and how it's going to have an impact on their well-being. And the basic reports allow us to communicate that safety data throughout the organization. So one thing that I noticed in my career is many observers pencil whip, that's a famous word in safety, pencil whip their observations because many observers feel that their observations don't really have value. I've heard comments from observers say, I never hear about my observations, therefore I think they're just making me do this just to do it. So now you have an opportunity to communicate to your observers, these are the results and this is the reason why we're going with this training, because according to the observers, we need to have a conversation about our fire protection. So that way they get to see that now their observations really have value and that their observations are their voice in communicating with the safety department what we need to focus on to save people's lives. So now that all of you are geniuses, you guys are going to walk out after this webinar and say, wow, I'm able to look at all my data and people are going to think I'm a genius. Now you're going to be able to take action. So when we take action, that's what changes things. Any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Grace. Very informative. Yeah, so if you have any questions, go ahead and use the chat function at the top of your screen there, top right. You can type that in. This webinar was recorded, so we will be sending out the recording in a few days. So look forward to that. And again, we hope you enjoyed this webinar and learned something. And let me see if there's any questions coming through. I don't see any yet. I'll give you a moment to do that. Again, reminder of the conference coming up in October 3rd through 5th. We'll have to see you there, and we'll have more presentations similar to this on that first day, that Monday, and then through the rest of the week, we're doing something a little different. We're helping, we took a lot of questions that we received while we're working with clients about safety process and people, and we brought those questions to bear on the sessions, and so we're all the sessions will be hinging around safety questions, and then safety net will be used to answer, in some cases, answer those questions on how you can use it, get to the answers, or how do you track things that you need to track. So, yeah, I don't see any. Oh, I see one chat here. Hold on one moment. Got a question about, does the 20% observer change with the data that is input? So
I'm sorry, repeat that question.
Does the percentage observer change with the data that is input? Once a 5-star, then a 4-star. So, for example.
Okay, the percentage does not change. So the 20%, the fourth ranking is 20% will be 5, 20% will be 4. Now, what will change is based on how the observer is doing, their stars are going to change. However, if you have 40% of people doing everything right, only 20 will be 5 stars. The other 20 will be 4 stars, and that's because it's forced ranked. So that's why I always tell my clients, look at the data within the stars. I normally wouldn't share the stars with the observers because most people want to strive for that 5-star, and unfortunately they won't always, they're not going to make it, not all of them. So because it's set up that way. So I personally do not share stars with my observers. That's more for me running the process to see the type of observations that are being put in the system and what I need to do to give feedback to my observers. So the example we showed earlier was we had less than 1 at-risk condition being entered in all of our observations for that particular month. I need to have a conversation with my observers to say, I know you're doing a good job redirecting behaviors and catching things on your location. I need you to record it because according to the data, you guys aren't recording it. So I need you to do a better job of recording. And so that's what that star information is going to give you. But as far as the stars are concerned, it's very misleading, and I would just take take caution when showing those stars to your observers.
Thank you, Grace. That's great. Well, we run out of time, so if you do have any questions, we're always here for you. Call call us or go to support@predictivesolutions.com or email me, and I'll get you in contact with the process improvement leader. We are here to help. So thank you so much for participating today, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.